It is an undeniable fact that the original Doom is one of the most influential games ever. It's genre-defining. It spawned an endless amount of video games we call Doom clones nowadays. Its influence still persists in the whole industry as time goes on. The original was an action-packed first-person shooter, and while it had some creepy moments for the time, it's hard to label it as horror compared to what the term horror means today. While its expansions, the sequel's expansions had the same gameplay, same art style, and the overall same feeling, id Software decided to take the plunge and carried the series over to a whole different style. While it was still a first-person shooter, Doom 3 leaned heavily on horror. It was a massive commercial success, however, it also changed the reception against the whole series. Most die-hard fans weren't happy to see such a different, slower game, and as it always goes, people hated the change in general. It is difficult to make people come to terms with change. Just look at Resident Evil. While the sixth game was a successful entry, it was clear that the series had lost its identity, so Capcom did a full reset, and with PT's influence too, they turned the mainline Resident Evil series into a full first person. While the majority loved the game, series' die-hard fans disliked it and claimed that it wasn't a real Resident Evil. The same thing happened to Doom 3, unfortunately, and we still keep seeing the same uninformed, outdated opinion. It's a good horror game, but it's not a good Doom game. Is that true, or are you simply against change? Hello everybody, my name is Hurjan and welcome to a new horror visuals video. Today we're going to talk about Doom 3, my favorite horror game of all time. But don't worry, this will be an unbiased video on why I consider it to be the perfect survival horror game and why you should perhaps give it another chance with the insight you will hopefully gain from this video. Before we jump into it, let's touch upon a term so simple yet so complicated because of the uninformed opinions and loud minorities surrounding those opinions. Yeah, what is survival horror? You really don't have to think too much or too deep into it. Just look at the literal meaning of those two words, survival and horror. It means to survive in a horror setting. In discourses around social media, you're gonna see people gatekeeping this term like crazy. This is not survival horror, that is not survival horror. Survival horror has to be this exact way or it's out of the question. It really doesn't work that way. Times change and games change. People are still stuck on the PlayStation 1 and 2 era of survival horror games. They usually look at survival horror games with boxes to tick. Does it have guns, inventory management, fixed camera angles, resource management? Perfect then, it's a survival horror game. According to this outdated idea, if a game doesn't have any of those, then it's not a survival horror game. But quite the opposite. The survival horror genre has always been an evolving genre without a single blueprint. Fatal Frame is a survival horror game, it doesn't have guns. Haunting Ground is survival horror, it doesn't have guns and you can't fight against enemies using conventional methods. A more recent example, Amnesia: The Dark Descent, is a survival horror game. You are surviving in a horror setting using the in-game mechanics you are given. There is resource management, puzzles, and an overall survival against horrifying creatures in a horror setting. Again, it's actually quite easy to understand. It's a simple term. If your character is trying to survive in a horror setting, then in its essence, it's a survival horror game. Now that we have set some ground rules and went over the meaning of survival horror, let's tackle the big statement in this video and understand why Doom 3 is the perfect survival horror game. Again, this is my unbiased opinion. If you're from Twitter, then you know that I'm a curator of horror games and I play a lot of horror games. I don't like to act like I'm some kind of an expert on this genre, but it is undeniable that I have some knowledge about it. I will use this knowledge to empower my points and try to get my point across in the best way possible. I recently played the game from start to finish again on the veteran difficulty using the BFG version. If I'm not mistaken, this is my 7th time beating Doom 3 and the 4th time beating it on veteran. I like the Nightmare difficulty more, but I wanted a more mid-level experience because compared to other survival horror games, Doom 3 might be a bit more challenging, especially if you're not into first-person shooters, and I wanted to take my notes from a regular player's perspective. It is also my recommendation for your first playthrough if you want to experience survival horror in its glory. First, let's learn about Doom 3 a bit. The third installment in the series, it's a soft reboot of the Doom franchise. Released in 2004, it was also the first video game to use id Tech 4, the revolutionary game engine made by id Software. You play as the unnamed Marine, and the game refers to you as the Marine. You don't have a name or you don't have a past. You are simply assigned to a mission on Mars in one of the UAC stations. Because of some strange events and unknown circumstances, people are disappearing, put on leaves, or transferred to other stations. There's an uneasiness in the air. As soon as the intro sequence finishes and the small space shuttle drops you off at your new station, Doom 3 starts to shine with its first and perhaps one of the strongest features: world building. As soon as you drop off, you realize that you can talk to any NPC and exhaust their full dialogue by talking to them multiple times. You take the steps and go up to this platform, only to see a nervous-looking scientist sitting on a bench. When you talk to him, he tells you to be careful, to watch your back, and how he has to get out of here.
It's not safe here. Trust no one. If you're staying here, watch your back.
Of course, not knowing what's going on, both you and the Marine that you're controlling can't really understand what's the issue here. You take a few more steps, get into the actual station, and just, listen around a bit. From that point on, and until you get your first gun, you will notice if you stop and listen to the scientist or the repair crew, or any NPC really, you will hear them gossiping amongst themselves. They talk about how their colleagues mention that they hear whispering sometimes, or how that one guy didn't show up to work that day, only to learn that he was transferred to another station. But no one saw it happen. It's all very suspicious. He just disappeared and the management told them that he got transferred.
Accidents? That's good. Is that what they're calling him now?
So, tell me, just what the hell is happening over there?
Beats me, man. Look, all I do is repair the converters when they blow, okay? That's it.
The uneasiness in the air starts to really show its face in these moments. You know for a fact that there is something wrong here. Everybody's tense, they're busy, they just want to finish whatever they're doing and get off this station. Doom 3 doesn't take shortcuts. It doesn't just give you things to read. The story is all around you, everywhere. It's in people's behaviors, the way they speak, the abandoned nature of environments. Everything adds into Doom 3's story right before the game actually begins. It's aware that this is a new entry and a reboot of this franchise. It's holding your hand and telling you what kind of a deep trouble you got yourself into before pushing you further into that trouble. After the weird rumors you heard around the station, just to take a quick breather, you then go to the bathroom and... what is that? Are those whispers that you're hearing coming from this specific corner? What is that about? Are these sounds coming from the pipes, or is there something else going on here? Everything else is normal. Now that you also have your PDA, you can look around, find some notes to read or recordings to listen to, and check out the news boards around you. While some of them give you valuable information about the station and get you to know the world, some of them mention a certain scientist being lost in the lower sector. He doesn't seem to be responding to calls by the command. Rumor after rumor, and after getting to know some of your colleagues, you finally make your way to the command room and get your first assignment. Apparently, you are replacing someone else because they're out of commission, and your first task is to find this missing scientist and bring him back. Easy enough, right? You then go through creepy hallways with serious lighting problems and slowly make your way to the underground sector. Notice how the game keeps pushing you further into the unknown, right? The more you move further, the darker the environment gets. Now there aren't as many people around you. There's only this oppressive, soul-crushing silence. After you find the scientist that you're looking for, he swiftly tries to tell you that he has to send a distress call, otherwise things will become even worse. And still, you don't exactly know what is happening. What is this guy talking about? Why is he so scared like this? What did they do? This merged with the rumors that you've been hearing ever since you set foot on this station. Now you know for a fact that there is something really wrong here. But before he could send the message out, the demonic invasion begins. All hope abandon, ye who enter here. The gates of hell are open. Before we venture further into hell, let's slow down and take a few steps back to talk about the environmental design in Doom 3. We can start by recalling to the things we've seen until the demonic invasion began. Doom 3 takes place in the distant future on Mars. The humanity has evolved and ventured into space. Because the game takes place in a scientific setting, there is an overall dominant metallic and industrial environmental design. Massive machinery working all around the place, making all kinds of metallic sounds, rooms surrounded with pipes, metallic grating on all walkways, fully interactive touch control monitors everywhere, and an overall dominance of the colors. Gray, green, and blue is present. It's all so bland, depressive, soul-sucking colors. But obviously this is an artistic decision the game takes before kicking things off. Remember how I told you, when you're on your way to the underground sector to find the scientist, how the environment started to change? Everything got darker, those cold colors got darker and replaced by black, red, and still lots of metallic gray. As the game evolves and you go further into it, the colors become even more darker and contrasted. Once the demonic invasion begins, Doom 3's environment starts to change drastically. Red being the conventional color for emergency, we see red lights all over the place. I mean, the term red alert exists for a reason. Red by itself is a color that triggers a bunch of different emotions in our minds. Depending on the situation, these emotions can vary from positive to negative in a drastic way. In Doom 3, red is used for danger, and it's used beautifully. Emergency lights aside, it's the game's way of telling you things are about to go from bad to worse in a second. Prepare yourself. If you're in a room with fluorescent lights and an encounter is about to begin, the game sometimes tries to help you with sound cues, and by dimming the lights for a second, briefly turning them into red. This trains you as the player to always be cautious against the color red. As you proceed from sector to sector and visit different labs, medical bays, or engineering stations, you're gonna notice how varied Doom 3's environments are. There's also the fact that the further you proceed into the game, the more brutal it gets. The demonic invasion swiftly proceeds into the whole UAC base on Mars, and with them, hell starts to leak into reality like it's some sort of a plague. Fleshy, slimy tubes start to appear all around the place, changing the architecture from its core. While at first these hellish developments are rare, you start to see them all around the place towards the end. While exploring these labs where the colors white, grey and blue were dominant, you will notice that that's not the case anymore because now they have blood smeared on all of them. Doom 3 is one of the best games to use blood splatters as a part of the environment. The dried off blood red creates such a contrast on those shiny white labs, it's enough to put the fear of hell inside you, because people didn't just die in this base, they got tortured and lived through immense pain before their deaths. It shows. And towards the end is where Doom 3's environment turns all chaotic, but at the same time it starts to reveal its story. As the Nameless Marine, you know that if you want to defeat Hell for good, you have to go in there and do it from its core. To venture into Hell though, you have to leave the scientific parts of the UAC base and descend into its depths, the caverns. You gotta understand, this at its core is an archaeological expedition. Hell is an uncharted land and the aim of this whole operation is to discover its secrets. Hence why they went into multiple expeditions unearthing strange artifacts. While exploring some of these archaeological labs, you even discovered stone tablets that might look a bit familiar. This is Doom 3's way of saying, maybe it's not that disconnected after all. And if you thought the prophecy tablets in Doom 2016 were a novel idea, here is where it was first done. The Nameless Marine, or the Doom Guy, was always a part of that prophecy. But be brave, my friends, we have explored every single sector the UAC had in store for us. Now, there's only one place left for us to go. Hell. First and foremost, I want you to keep it in your mind that Doom 3 was released in 2004. After years of horror movies about demons, exorcism, and hell, Event Horizon seemingly being one of the biggest inspirations for Doom 3, id Software still managed to create their own unique hell. It is scary, merciless, painful, but also very metal. Throughout the whole game, you venture into hell only twice. Once at about 80% into the game, and once at the very end of it. On your first journey to hell, it manages to catch you off guard. It's all so unexpected. You just jump into a portal, expecting it to lead you to another sector in the UAC labs, but instead it takes you to hell. The extreme contrast in the environment gives you a heavy slap as a wake-up call. This is the real deal, you're in hell. The demons look different. Here they're all red and fleshy, they look more chaotic. This is their domain, this is their home, and these are their true forms. The way id Software designed hell is one for the books. It consists of stone walls, candles, walkways, lava, fleshy tubes, cages, and lots of screams. It's all so satanic. It is endless torment, but what's even better about it, and possibly my favorite thing about hell in Doom 3 as a whole, is that it feels so real. Think about all the other iterations of hell you've seen or read in fiction. They always feel so unnatural. They never manage to pass that threshold of realness and just stay as fiction. In Doom 3, hell feels like a real place, like it was always there in the depths of Mars, as if when people die they go to Mars or something. It feels like a real place with a physical form, somewhere you can go with a spaceship. It takes all of its religious aspect and gives it a whole new meaning. I think it will be fair to compare it to Dante Alighieri's Inferno from the Divine Comedy. There, hell also feels like a real, lived-in place. It has its purpose, its residence, and its own way of things. It feels organic. This feeling of ethereal realism of hell in Doom 3 makes it feel ever the more terrifying for you and the Nameless Marine, because when he first goes into hell, he also loses all of his weapons and has to find them in hell, so you're not only in their domain, but also powerless. But at the end, you manage to fight off a fleshy horde of demons and manage to obtain the artifact, the one thing that could close off the gates of hell for good. But let's stop for a minute and go back a few paragraphs. Remember how I told you, hell in Doom 3 feels scary, merciless, painful, but also very metal. Here is where that falls into place. Your second and last venture into hell. This time to defeat evil and close the gates for good. This time you know where you're going into and you're prepared. The second venture into hell happens at the end of Doom 3. It's the last level and the climax of the game. But now you're a seasoned slayer of demons, or some might say, the Doom Slayer. You have the artifact, the BFG, and your whole arsenal. This time, you don't go to hell through a portal, you go through a small hallway instead. Hell fully leaked into UAC. It's in the material world now. This time you don't fear. You aren't just put there. You are here to slay demons. And precisely because of this, the second venture into hell feels so metal. Hell is even more chaotic than you first arrived, but it all adds to the fun. It's more demons to slay. This time you manage to go even deeper and see headless bodies, limbless torsos, fire, lava, and primal platforms that still do feel very natural. Never for a moment Doom 3 drops the ball and always manages to keep giving you that lived-in feeling of hell. It never feels like a magical, unnatural place. It's all organic, and now you're in it. While sure, the environments in Doom 3 and the environmental storytelling overall is untouchable and great, there's another massive factor that adds into its greatness. The environment wouldn't look this stunning without Doom 3's incredible graphics. So let's talk about them for a bit. Now, first of all, the footage you're seeing on your screen is from the BFG edition of Doom 3. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a remastered version of the original Doom 3. It is the same game with slightly upped definition and some other graphical improvements. But at its core, it looks and feels the same. People will gatekeep and tell you the original is better for millions of reasons they can find, but don't worry about it too much. BFG is a solid remaster and you're not gonna miss anything if you play it instead of the original. In fact, I recommend playing the BFG version because simply it's more accessible. There's no need for nostalgia baiting here. Coming back to the graphics of Doom 3, we gotta first praise id Tech 4 for its capabilities. It's an incredible graphics engine, especially when it comes to lighting and metallic surfaces. Doom 3 only being the first ever game that was made with this engine, it's unbelievable that the game still holds up incredibly well to this day. It's at the same level as Half-Life 2, which is also a game that was released in the same year as Doom 3. And much like Half-Life 2, when you play Doom 3 today, regardless of the version, it won't feel dated at all. While art design is clearly an adding factor to this, there's just something so simple yet so elegant about Doom 3's visual design in general. id Tech 4 feels like magic when it comes to creating metallic surfaces. The stark difference in shadows and illuminated places creates an incredible feeling of contrast and manages to startle you with expertly made shadow play. The darkness in Doom 3 isn't just fake darkness like you see in most horror games. It is pure darkness, pitch black. It is impossible to see anything without your flashlight. There will be moments where your flashlight will run out for a brief moment and you're gonna see flashy yellow eyes looking at you from the darkness, ready to jump onto you and start clawing. Moments like these make you appreciate the amount of effort that went into Doom 3. Even to this day, creating and maintaining the right amount of darkness in a horror game is quite the challenging task. Lighting is the most powerful aspect of Doom 3's visuals, and it is what makes it so scary most of the time. The expertly made gory scenes, blood-smeared walls, isolated, dreadful-looking laboratories, and of course hell itself, they look incredible even to this day, thanks to its graphics and the atmosphere created by these graphics. The atmosphere is what makes or breaks a horror game, and let me tell you, Doom 3 has atmosphere. While the graphical strength of It Take 4 creates a dreadful hellscape, it wouldn't be the same without the exceptional sound design of Doom 3. While sure, I believe horror games are supposed to be played with headphones, not all horror games can really benefit from their sound design. It usually feels like an afterthought, so you don't really lose much if you play without headphones. However, in Doom 3's case, I'm an advocate for headphones. Doom 3 is a game that you need to play in a dark room and with headphones cranked to maximum volume. It is a natural part of the game's atmosphere and also its gameplay. The game gives you tons of sound cues as to where the enemies are and when they will strike. It's always so accurate. Even when you're simply exploring a room that you believe you already cleared, something might still be lurking in the corner, and the game will give you that cue using the sound design. The sudden pops of breaking machinery, the sinister laughs coming from the other side, the deceiving whispers coming from the air vents, it all adds to Doom 3's atmosphere and turns it into an unforgettable collective of sounds. Occasionally in scripted, action-packed scenes, you will also hear some kick-ass music coming into play, not to mention the iconic main menu music itself. When you venture into hell, you can just sit in silence for a moment and hear the literal torment seeping into your ears. Screams of mangled bodies, screeching demons, flapping wings, the burning fire, you can hear and feel everything. It's just top-notch sound design. The ultimate peak sound design. When it comes to gameplay, Doom 3 on a surface level plays like any other Doom, or any other first-person shooter really. You try to move quickly, avoid projectiles, take cover, and shoot your enemies using your wide arsenal of weapons. However, Doom 3 differs from your regular run-of-the-mill shooters in some ways. First off, Doom 3 is not a single-player arena shooter. What does that mean? For example, in Doom 2016, when you enter a new room, enemies spawn, you kill them, and proceed to the next area, right? That's how it works. You don't go back to the previous area and no enemies spawn in that area either. You're completely done with that area. This is how it usually works in first-person shooters. In Doom 3, you fight through hordes of demons in small rooms that are connected by narrow hallways and automatic doors. Even when you believe you cleared a room and proceeded to the next one, you can still hear a demon spawning in the previous room, or the room before that, and it can still come and attack you. They aren't just trapped in that previous room forever, like you see in many horror games. They can go through doors and follow you forever until you kill them or avoid them somehow. At the first few levels of the game, you will notice that the enemy AI is actually pretty easy to beat. UAC soldiers, for example, even though they have long-range weapons, they still come at you in melee range and let you turn them into fleshy dust with a single shot from your glorious shotgun. As you proceed through levels, however, you will notice that the AI is getting slightly smarter. They climb through vents, crawl on walls, hurl fireballs at you from different angles, hide behind automatic doors, or simply take cover behind hard surfaces, forcing you to change tactics. And again, the more you move further into the game, the more they start to attack in numbers. The enemy variety goes up, and if you don't finish them quickly, they very easily surround you and quite literally beat you to death. So then, what makes it survival horror? Let's address the elephant in the room. Doom 3 plays like any other survival horror game in its essence. First off, it has puzzles. While some of these puzzles revolve around key hunting and using those keys on the correct doors, Doom 3 at its core has an interesting code finding mechanic. Throughout the game, you're gonna find lockers or doors with numeric keypads. To obtain the codes for these keypads, you have to explore around, gather PDAs, and look for clues. Sometimes these codes will be hidden in the reports given by the UAC workers in their voice recordings, sometimes they will be in mails, or sometimes they will be hidden in the environment surrounding those keypads. This single aspect of the game always gives you a puzzle to solve and rewards you for your detective skills. While most of them are easily obtainable, some of them will be pretty challenging to figure out, and usually they will be the most rewarding ones to solve.
Technicians should use cabinet code 396 to access them. End of log.
Other than these, the game also has a couple of environmental puzzles. They aren't anything challenging, but they're still there to give you some breathing room, to make you take a small break from all the shooting and looting and surviving. Speaking of surviving, that's something you're gonna try to do a lot in Doom 3. While at the first few levels it takes it easy and doesn't really put you into challenging situations, the further you go in, the more difficult Doom 3 becomes. You're gonna have to look around for healing station and healing items while also trying to maintain your armor levels. You also can't just lean your back into a corner thinking you're gonna be safe. Anything can crawl out of a vent and just take you by surprise. Throughout the whole game, except for some brief moments of respite, Doom 3 will have its claws on your neck, constantly pushing you from bad situations to worse. There are gonna be moments where you roam around with 5 HP looking for a single drop of health pack, trying to avoid fireballs coming from a horde of imps around you. Remember, they don't just disappear after you go into another room, they will follow you there. This is not your regular survival horror game, and it's not gonna pull any punches. Depending on how good you are at aiming and conserving ammo, there are gonna be moments where you're left off without your favorite gun's ammo and you're gonna have to resort to other guns using other methods. Sometimes you're even gonna need to use your fists or your chainsaw, or even better, your flashlight if you play the original version. The weapon variety in Doom 3 is incredible, and each weapon has its own strengths and weaknesses. Yes, even the shotgun, and especially the shotgun. It's one of the best weapons in the game, and if a person tells you that the Doom 3 shotgun sucks, just tell them that it's a skill issue and they should just get good at the game. If you know how to aim, the Doom 3 shotgun can become one of the deadliest weapons in the game. These gameplay mechanics, combined with the game's exceptional horror atmosphere, manages to create an unforgettable, top-of-the-line survival horror experience. Because of the things you heard about the game or the things you've seen online, you might be thinking, the game goes too action-focused towards the end because you got all these weapons. While that may be true, it is also the case with many survival horror games. In Resident Evil 4, for example, the game loses its horror aspects in just a few stages into the game and leaves its place to full action-packed gameplay. A more recent example, Dead Space, also turns into an action game after a point. While Doom 3 also leans into more action towards the end, it also never stops stressing you out with clutch moments. Enemies still manage to scare you with surprise attacks, and the atmosphere keeps on delivering that sweet, sweet horror. Even after you receive the artifact, which is a holy weapon that heals you with each attack, you still can't go full action and have to be careful. Of course, take this with a grain of salt and consider my words in the context of the veteran difficulty or even the nightmare difficulty. So even in this sense, Doom 3 manages to come out as superior compared to the other classics of the genre. All of these things I talked about until this point, and possibly more, when they're combined, they turn Doom 3 into this horrifying feast of survival. Doom 3 is a survival horror game, and in my unbiased opinion, it might be the best one at that. It's got the top-of-the-line technical aspect with its graphics engine, sound design, art design, environmental storytelling, gameplay. And it also has the thematic supporters like its atmosphere, horror, story, mythos, everything combines and creates this glorious feast of survival horror. 19 years after its release, Doom 3 still manages to scare me and entertain me in new ways. It's a top-of-the-line horror game with innovative gameplay mechanics and stunning visuals. Because of the whole debate surrounding its predecessors and how it differs from them, left Doom 3 in a dim light. The horror community also sees it as an action shooter rather than a horror game, and when these two are combined, Doom 3 literally has nowhere to go. But I believe, with the insight you've gained from this video, hopefully, if you give it another chance, I'm sure you're gonna find something to appreciate in Doom 3. It is a shame that because of this overall reception, they never followed through with another horror-themed Doom, but I'm glad that we at least got Doom 3. It was id Software's way of being brave and taking a leap of faith by doing something so unusual and creative. Something you rarely see in the games industry these days. I hope one day they decide to follow through and make another horror game in the Doom universe.
All they want is something to make them more money, some product.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this retrospective/review/essay. I worked a lot on this, and it would mean a great deal to me if you share it around, leave a like and subscribe for more. Doom 3 is an important game for me. It's a game from my childhood, and it's a game that I believe that shaped me into the person who I am today. It shaped my art style, it shaped my taste in gaming, it just made me an even bigger fan of horror. I hope I was able to do it justice with this essay video. As always, thank you all for watching. You can find all my links in the description below at Horror Visuals, and I will see you on the next one.